chronological Bible night. Ask questions. I don't know when really didn't. This month has been really hectic for Byron and for others, and I don't know if anybody had questions. And I told Byron, I said I'd be glad to fill in for him. And of course, this is on Sunday. But I do have one item that I wanted to look at, and we'll try to see how much I can expand on it somewhat. And then after that, if anybody has a question about something they've read, we'll see what we can do there. Page 1046, August the 11th. And if you'll look down on page 1046, where it says Jeremiah gave these messages during Jehoiakim's short reign. If you don't have a chronological Bible with you and you're using just a regular Bible, it's Jeremiah chapter 22, 24 through 30. And I'm going to read this. As I live, says the Lord, though Coniah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, were the signet on my right hand, yet I would pluck you off, and I will give you into the hand of those who seek your life, and into the hand of those whose face you fear, the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and the hand of the Chaldeans. So I will cast you out, and your mother, who bore you, into another country where you were not born, and there you shall die. But to the land to which they desire to return, there they shall not return. Is this man Coniah, a despised, broken idol, a vessel in which is no pleasure? Why are they cast out, he and his descendants, and cast out into a land which they do not know? O earth, 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 hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, write this man down as childless, a man who shall not prosper in his days. For none of his descendants shall prosper, sitting on the throne of David and ruling any more in Judah. So in order to talk about this, let's go into a little bit of background. Who was the last good king of Judah? I heard of Hezekiah. Hezekiah. Not Hezekiah. Hezekiah.
Can you give us a hint what it starts with? Josiah.
Someone said Josiah. Okay, so my hint was going to be, it ends in ah. No, it begins with a J. Josiah would be considered the last good king of Israel. In fact, of Judah, excuse me. In fact, you could probably say that of the kings of the divided kingdom of Judah, he was probably the greatest of the kings, although Hezekiah could get into you could get into a good discussion there about those two. So Josiah, when he became king, he was a young man, a really young child, but he did a lot of things for the goodness of God, to the glory of God. He destroyed the high places, got rid of the worshipers of the Baal and various things. He was very there. They found the law in the temple. He had the temple rebuilt or repaired, and there they found the law. And the law, one had the law read, and they went to a prophetess on this to discuss this about finding the law. Did a lot of good things. But, and one of the things was said to him, I'll make this comment, is that even though Josiah was a good king, what was going to happen to Judah? They were still going to be punished. They were still going to be carried away. They were still going to receive punishment. But the one thing that would happen is Josiah would not be, this would not occur while Josiah was living. Josiah, you had the Egyptians and you had the Babylonians, and please note that prior to the Babylonians, what was the dominant empire nation in this area? The Assyrians. The Assyrians were dropping, though, in around 612 BC, the Babylonians defeated them. But you still had the Egyptians and you had the Babylonians, and the Egyptians were Pharaoh Necho was wanting to get involved, was going up against them. And of course, one of the things about the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, was its location. And so it was a travel route, but it was also one where, like I said, the Egyptians, to get to the Babylonians or to get to Asia Minor, you had to go through Israel. To get from Mesopotamia down to Egypt, you had to go through the land of Canaan, just the way it was. And so the Egyptians were heading toward against the Babylonians. Josiah led an army against them at the Megiddo, and there he died. So Josiah, the last good king of Judah, dies in battle with the Egyptians. So then what happens? Well, let me pull up my Bible, my other Bible. And so in chapter 36 of 2 Chronicles, it says, then the people of the land took Jehoaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king into his father's place in Jerusalem. Jehoaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. Now the king of Egypt disposed him at Jerusalem, and he imposed on the land a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. Then the king of Egypt made Jehoaz's brother Eliakim king over Judah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoaz's brother and carried him off to Egypt. So, give or take, this is approximately around 609 or so, 608 BC. Let me continue reading, because there's a little more information given here. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. So Jehoaz, the brother, first one, got to reign 3 months, carried away by the Egyptians. Jehoiakim reigned about 11 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against him and bound him in bronze fetters to carry him off to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried off some of the articles from the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, the abominations which he did, and what was found against him, indeed they are written in the book of Kings of Israel and Judah. Then Jehoiakim, his son, reigned in his place. So this carrying away occurs around 597 BC. The Babylonians come and they carry Jehoiakim away. This, though, is this, here's my question, and you probably already guessed maybe. Is this the first carrying away, though? No. No, if you go to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 1, you'll read of a carrying away then. Now, there's no reference with regard to time and this and that, but based upon, and some people will come and question and say, well, does it really say such? Since we don't see it in the Chronicles of this. But if you read it and you understand it, the Babylonians were in the area, the Egyptians had been in the area, they carried away. The Babylonians came in and took some of the young men away and took some others away. And they took men such as Daniel and his Babylonian named his brethren, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, because I can't remember the Hebrew names right off the top of my head. But they carried away. So that was the first carrying away. That occurred around 606 BC. 606 BC. The second carrying away occurs in 597 BC. In fact, if somebody's got their chronological Bible in hand, if you'll look at the header, what date is put beside that? What date is located beside that header? 597 BC. So this is the time of the second carrying away. So Jehoiakim is carried, the Babylonians come, they lay waste to the city, they carry away Jehoiakim, they carry away others. And so what then happens? In 2 Chronicles 36, verse 9, Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months and 10 days, and he did evil on the sight of the Lord. At the turn of the year, Nebuchadnezzar summoned him and took him to Babylon with the costly articles from the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah, now this is in parentheses, Jehoiakim's brother, king over Judah. So Jehoiakim was the son of whom? Well, let's go back. Jehoaz, or Eliakim, who had been made king by the Egyptians, was son of Josiah. He was carried away. Jehoiakim was Jehoaz's, or Eliakim's, brother, so his father would have also been who? Josiah. But when Jehoiakim was carried away, his son was put in place, and so he was carried away after 3 months and a few days, and it says he did evil in the sight, which is really just an interesting, if you really think about it, that's an interesting statement, is it not? Because how old was this king? 8 years old. Now someone says, he probably had regents with him and he probably had advisors and this and that. But whatever they did, he seems to have enjoyed it, or what, he didn't put a stop to it, especially when you compare him to his grandfather, Josiah. Just he did evil. He was carried away. Now, Zedekiah was the king. He was Jehoiakim's uncle. He was Jehoiakim's brother. So it goes from Josiah, Jehoaz, then it shifts over to another brother, Jehoiakim, goes down to Jehoiakim, then it goes back up to a brother. So Zedekiah is king. He reigns for about 10 or 11 or so years until 586 BC, at which time the Babylonians bring their third carrying away, their last carrying away. At that point, they destroy the city of Jerusalem. They destroy the temple, the walls. They carry away, they kill or carry away all the important people. They leave the poor people behind. Zedekiah was prophesied that he would go to Babylon, but he would not see Babylon. Does anybody remember in your reading what happened there? His sons were killed, and then his eyes were put out. But this occurred not in Babylon, it occurred in the Levant, in Israel and Palestine, Canaan. It occurred before Nebuchadnezzar came to him, killed his sons, put there, and then they took him to Babylon. I just bring that out. So that's the last king. But on the lineage side, Jeconiah is the last king. Josiah, then to Jehoiakim, and then to Jeconiah, the lineage. So, what do we read here in the prophecy? We go back, and we're looking at verse 30. Thus saith the Lord, write this man down as childless, a man who shall not prosper in his days, for none of his descendants shall prosper, sitting on the throne of David and ruling any more in Judah. So, Jeconiah, it said, would be childless. So let's turn over to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1 contains, at the beginning of the chapter, what does it contain, Cameron Christian? Matthew chapter 1. It contains...
lineage.
You said the genealogy? I put him on the spot, and he's going to be mad at me Sunday. So. The genealogy, the lineage of Christ. Cameron knows that, don't you, Cameron? Cameron's a good young man. He does a really good job in my class. All the young men we have in that class do a really good job. So let's go and look at verse 11. Josiah begot Jeconiah and his brothers about the time they were carried away to Babylon. And then after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconiah begot Shealtiel, and Shealtiel begot Zerubbabel. Turn over to Luke really quickly. Luke chapter 3. Now, here's another genealogy in Luke chapter 3. Starts with verse 23. It goes back to Adam. But if you look at verse 27, it says, the son of Joannes, the son of Resa, the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the son of Neri. Now, go back to Matthew chapter 1. Jeconiah begat Shealtiel, and Shealtiel begat Zerubbabel. So you see it here going backwards. If we turn around, it would be Neri, Shealtiel, Zerubbabel. Matthew has Jeconiah, Shealtiel, and Zerubbabel. A couple things I want to point out here. First of all, if Jeconiah begot someone, what does that mean? He was not what? He was not childless. He had a son in that lineage. He was not childless. And please note, if you go and look, you'll discover that he was living in Babylon and he had children. So he's not childless. One other thing I want to point out, this is really interesting. So if you trace the lineage of Jesus through Matthew's side, through Matthew, that's the lineage of which of the parents? Joseph or Mary? Of Matthew. That's Joseph. Luke would be of Mary's. And if you go, and again, it goes all the way back to Adam and Luke. So that means it goes back to Abraham, which is where Matthew's pick starts. So we go to Abraham, we go all the way down till it comes to David. It's at David, when David's shown, that's where it splits off. So then David and his lineage with regard to Christ includes what son? Think of potato chips.
Miss Pringle.
Not Pringle. Not Lay's. Wise. Solomon. But that's not Mary's. So it splits. And then it comes back together and appears for a little bit. Well, how does that work? Because how does the genealogy work under the Jews, under the Israelites? They trace what? The father. They trace the father. It goes by the fathers. So when you go back to Luke, and it says the son of Shealtiel, the son of Neri. Neri is considered the father of Shealtiel. But Jeconiah is considered the father of Shealtiel. How is that possible? What? There's a better explanation. I would go to the book of Numbers. If you go to the book of Numbers.
But is that feasible, what he said?
No, it's not. It's not. I guess it's feasible. Is it the best answer? You go to the book of Numbers. I can find it really quickly. Marriage, this is chapter 36. Now, the book of Numbers, previously in the book of Numbers, some daughters of a man who had no son came to Moses and said, what's going to happen to our inheritance? Because under the Israelite law, who got the inheritance? The males, the sons did. They said, so what's going to happen? So God tells Moses to make an allowance, in this case like this, the daughters could get the inheritance. Okay, so Numbers 36. Now the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spake before Moses and before the leaders, the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said, the Lord commanded my Lord Moses to give the lands and inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. Now, if they are married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then their inheritance will be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and it will be added by the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. So it will be taken away from the lot of our inheritance. And when the Jubilee of the children of Israel comes, then their inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. So their inheritance will be taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers. So they are the tribe of Manasseh. They go and marry someone from the tribe of Benjamin. They marry sons from the tribe of Benjamin. What are the people? What are the leaders, the elders of Manasseh concerned about?
Where the land goes.
The land will go into the tribe of Benjamin. So what are you going to find out here? There's a restriction. They get to keep inheritance, but they have to marry within the same tribe. But that lineage then takes over. So that daughter traces into this lineage of the father, of the husband, and it continues on that way. So the inheritance remains in the same tribe. But this only occurs when there is daughters, no sons. So Byron and I have discussed this in the past. Jephthah, remember the account of Jephthah the judge? He had how many children? Anybody remember? One daughter. She was not, now maybe some people believe, in words they say, that she was sacrificed. Some have said that she was other people will say that she was remained a virgin. Sacrifices, what would that cost to Jephthah, if it was the idea of remaining a virgin, his lineage ended there because she wouldn't have any more children. But if she could marry into another family, his lineage could continue. It would be grafted in. That's what is in all likelihood happened here. Now, someone says, why would this occur? Well, let's note something. What has happened over the last 20 years in Judah? There's been
Right now?
no, in this time period, back in 606 to 586. What has happened? There's been a lot of carrying away and there's been a lot of killing. And so what do you think has possibly happened to some families with regard to their male heirs? They've been killed. And so it is quite possible that on Mary's side, maybe that father only had daughters at that point. Maybe it was natural, maybe it wasn't. But now you have a situation where it gets brought in. It comes in. And so that is my explanation of why the genealogies come together briefly when they really shouldn't have. Because again, you're tracing males,
Right.
not females. And so it is impossible for them to come together except there be some means by which it's allowed to, as I'll say, to graft someone in. Somewhat like the Gentiles are grafted into the house of the nation of Israel, are they not? So that's occurred. But we see that Jeconiah was not childless. Jeconiah was not childless. So this is a prophecy. Here's a prophecy. And we talk about how prophecies were fulfilled. So is Jeremiah wrong here? Well, let's read a little bit more.
Are you back in the book?
I'm back into page 1046. Let's go back in Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 30. Thus saith the Lord, write this man down as childless, a man who shall not prosper in his days. For none of his descendants shall prosper. Is that a period or a comma? That's a comma.
He says descendants. Obviously, he's got descendants.
Well, it says none of his descendants, again, that's true, but none of his descendants shall prosper, comma, how? Sitting on the throne of David and ruling anywhere, where? In Judah. So first of all, we know that Jeconiah was not childless. But second of all, what does the restriction really mean? None of his descendants shall prosper. What has occurred here in this prophecy? What will occur with Jeconiah? What will occur? Anybody? Anybody got a guess? What happens? It's the end of David's royal lineage. In terms of what? Not physical lineage, because we see it continues. Because Jesus is a part of that lineage. But what? That's the end of the king. That's the end of David's lineage being king. Of a throne where? In Judah. And a throne in Jerusalem. So why is this important today? Chad, you spent 35 minutes or 30 minutes really. Why is this important today? Anybody got a guess? Anybody got a thought? I'll go ahead and tell you so we won't waste time. Because what does premillennialism teach? That Jesus Christ is going to come back to this world and he's going to reign on an earthly throne in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. If that happens, then this prophecy is wrong. And they've lied. That's a lying, deceitful prophecy. for Jesus to be king. He cannot rule on a throne in Judah. And please note, someone says, well, he could rule in Rome. If you told that to people, they'd go crazy. He's going to rule in Jerusalem because that's where he's supposed to have his throne. But what has Jeremiah done speaking for the Lord? That's not going to happen. That ends. Jeconiah was the last king of the Davidic lineage who could reign on the throne in Jerusalem. But you say Jesus is king. Yes, he is. But what does that mean? If he is king, then what does that mean?
He's king.
Well, but he has a throne somewhere, does he not? Now, please note, it says Judah. So he couldn't, maybe he's king in Rome. No, nobody says that. He's king in New York. No, nobody says that. He's king in London. No. Where is his throne? In heaven. He's the spiritual head. Let's be careful. He's the physical head of the king. He's a king. He was a human being. He took a body, and then he changed his body upon resurrection. He went to the heavens. He was king. He was king. The only way he can be king is if he is king someplace else that does not deal with the Davidic lineage. He cannot be a physical king. Because first of all, Jeconiah was the last. That ended it. Second of all, if someone want to try to worm their way around that, he cannot be king in Judah. I mean, he cannot be king in Jerusalem, which is where everybody wants him to be king. But that's not the case. He could not be king here on earth in a physical setting. But if he's a king, then he is a king somewhere else. And we know, where is he king? He is king in heaven. His throne is in heaven. So this idea that Jesus is going to come back and reign for 1,000 years physical on earth and Jerusalem is wrong. It runs totally contrary to what Jeremiah wrote.
Well, they say a new Jerusalem. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
But notice again, in Judah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't say
So,
it's in Judah.
what?
The New Jerusalem doesn't say that it's in Judah.
I'll tell you what, if you read their writings, Jerusalem is in Judah. I've read too many premillennial writings, too many books. I read Hal Lindsey's a couple times. It's in Jerusalem. That's the reason why they have problems now. Because what do they want? They want to be in Jerusalem. They want the temple to be rebuilt. But what's there on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem today?
The dome.
A mosque. The dome. There's a lot of things. Everything comes, the Jews are coming back to Israel, they'll be saved, and then Jesus will come and be their king. That's impossible. It's impossible. It runs contrary to what the prophecies have said. Please note, Jesus could not be high priest under the law of Moses. Why? He was not of the tribe of Levi. But is he our high priest today? Yes. That means then something changed. Can he be king today in the lineage of David? No. Because why? Because the Bible says that has come to a stop. Remember one thing. In Acts chapter 1, before Jesus ascended, what did the disciples ask him? Are you going to restore the kingdom now? You know, Byron, I see you shaking your head. There's a part of me, and I'm the way I thought, wait a minute. They still haven't figured it out. And yet, Byron, I was thinking a little bit about this. I'm going to be a little more fair to them now than I probably would be in the past. They had just seen a man raised from the dead that spent 3 days. They saw that, and they had seen all these miracles, and they probably have clicked in their mind. They think, well, you know what? He's going to spring it on right now, and he's going to restore the kingdom right now. Right now. That's probably what they were thinking. That we see this man has all this power. We thought we would have to raise an army, and we would have to fight and all this, but no, Jesus will take care of it because he has all these powers. He can do it. In some ways, maybe that's not what they were thinking. But I'm trying to give them some credit that maybe that's what they're thinking. But Jesus told them what? He said they would go out to all the world. We go back to John chapter 4. Where were we to worship? Was it Jerusalem? Well, Jesus told the Samaritan woman, the Jews are right.
He told Pilate this wasn't his kingdom.
That he told him his kingdom was out of this world. There's a lot of things that point this out. But if Jesus had said, okay, I'll restore the kingdom for you, today you'd have someone else placed there, and they'd been carried away 16 times in the last 2,000 years. Because that's what they were. It's a different kingdom. It's a different kingdom. Jesus went up, and it's interesting to note that these men that 10 days before Pentecost were still asking about the kingdom. When Peter preached, where did he say Jesus was? He was in heaven, at the right hand of God, the throne of God. The Holy Spirit obviously helped Peter, did he not? Understanding now what Jesus was doing. But here's a great prophecy. And some people will claim, again, Jeconiah is not childless, so that's a contradiction. No, false prophecy didn't fulfill. No, it just represents the idea that a child born to be king on the Davidic throne, on the throne in Jerusalem, was not going to happen anymore. And again, Zedekiah was his uncle, was not of this lineage. Yes, technically he was, but that lineage is going through here. God says, stop right here. And so in order for Zedekiah, someone might say, well, maybe Zedekiah could have continued lineage. Did not, again, God put a stop to that as well, because what did we say earlier? His two sons were killed, and then Zedekiah was blinded and carried away to Babylon. So the physical kings that were present, it ended in the last siege, the last carrying away of Babylon. Here, and so like I said, why does this passage matter? Because again, there's a lot of people out there teaching that Jesus is going to reign on the throne. But if he actually reigns on the physical throne, it contradicts this prophecy. It contradicts this prophecy based upon what is being taught by premillennialists. So, we'll stop there. I don't think the second bell's ringing, but we don't have any more time after that. There it is.